Good morning. I'm glad to be here and excited to deliver this talk about GenAI product management.
Yeah, for sure. So Shreyas is an AI product manager at Palo Alto Networks, and he talks about product management for GenAI-based products. And we're going to be having a really interesting conversation. So if you want to start your presentation.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. I'm going to, as Jacqueline said, right, like a quick introduction. So I've been a product manager at Palo Alto Networks and have been working on GenAI-based copilots here. So I'm going to share today a bit about how I look towards product management for such type of products. What are some of the things you need to be, you need to consider before diving in? And this is purely based on my on my on-job experience and a bit from the book knowledge as well. I'm going to dive in real quick into my presentation. So Jacqueline, if you can just confirm if the screen is visible.
Yes, that's perfect.
All right, there you go. So we're going to start with some of the top questions that you're going to ask yourself before you actually dive into solutioning or starting up with a GenAI based product. We're going to dive deeper into what are some of the driving factors because again, product management would be different if you're trying to launch a GenAI based product at a startup, or you're trying to initiate your own startup versus you're trying to put something in at a big organization. Then there's going to be, I'm going to talk a little bit about shifting lens for a PM when you look at traditional non-AI based products versus AI based products. How are you going to go 0 to 1 with GenAI products, and then how to engage with the customers, which is a very important topic. Finally, we'll talk about things to consider as a PM. I'm going to cover a lot around right from your technical implementations to your strategies around testing, monitoring, your marketing strategies, then some consideration around the legal and data privacy concepts as well. Then we'll talk about RAGs versus fine tuning a bit, and I'll leave the stage open for Q&A towards that. All right. So diving straight in, right? Few questions first. Now imagine this: wherein you're a product manager and you're working for a big organization, and now you're actually working towards solving a problem, and for which you're going to use GenAI. That is a fundamental assumption that you're making, whether it's not the other way around, right? Hence, you have to really be sure of what is the motivation behind the need of having GenAI. Right? You're just doing it because you have found a product market fit, or this is more of you want to explore GenAI first, or you're absolutely fixated saying, I want GenAI, hence I'm going to go and find a problem for it, which might not be the ideal case. The first thing you're trying to look is what problem are you trying to solve, right? There could be this is a pretty open-ended question, but you have to nail this down really well, right? So A is you're trying to absolutely solve a use case within your product, which is currently not being solved by any other fashion. Okay, that could be one absolutely valid thing. Another thing could be you're maybe trying to simplify a particular flow within your product with GenAI, or possibly a copilot extension into your product, right? So there could be multiple problems, right? And this, how will you be able to figure out what problem I'm trying to solve? Is actually going in, trying to talk to the customers, and then once you have really nailed your problem down, you're going to go ahead into what success is going to mean. Now, you don't have to completely define, because as you're going to move forward with the implementation, trying to test the market, your definition of success is going to change. But it's good to have a high level expectation from your product, right? Now, you need to define how it means quantitatively versus qualitatively. And when you're going to use, for let's take into example, you're trying to build a copilot for e-commerce or for a retail company. right? Over here, you could lay your high-level metrics down, saying, okay, with the Copilot, I'm going to increase my revenue by X% for a particular product category, right? I'm trying to be very specific as possible here in terms of your quantitative metrics. And qualitatively, this is more around how your Copilot is responding to questions, right? What are some of the things that you absolutely don't want the Copilot to do? Something could be you don't want the Copilot to say your competitor is better than itself, right? Because when you're going to expose it to the user, they can prompt in anything. So these are some of the qualitative things that you're going to look at, which is Copilot should not be doing absolutely. And then basically, when you're trying to build something on top of a foundational model, which we're going to talk about, you want to make sure that it makes whatever fundamental use cases you're trying to solve are making sense. How I'm going to look at it is you're actually going to have a human in the loop to go and study the prompts and how the copilot is responding. And then there are going to be other evaluation techniques as well, which we'll be talking about. So what would success mean is one of the things you need to define, but you have to be absolutely open about it, that you can pivot and change as you go and implement. Final thing is the fourth thing is if is GenAI really needed to solve? Now this is a really important question because many a times with the current shift moving towards generative AI, with everyone wanting to have GenAI under their belt, are you trying to go for a solution first and trying to find a problem to put on top? And that is not going to work because it's going to be very difficult for you to justify maybe after first couple of release that you really needed GenAI to solve this problem. Maybe within the product itself, you have a different flow which is doing this thing for you. For example, maybe something like you're trying to, let's continue the example of the Copilot is for your retail company. You're trying to have something which is like giving you recommendations based on some prompt like, hey, I want to cook XYZ tonight, help me with whatever groceries I needed, things like that. Do you really need a conversational GenAI experience for this? Or can you just give recommendations straight up within the app itself, or have some predefined chips on the app which the user can select and they can get recommendations, because this will be much more controlled. When you're actually going to introduce GenAI, you need to be aware of the fact that it will be very uncontrolled, right? Because what you expect from a product side or from the side of development is you'll expect the users will input whatever you have developed it for, but that is not going to be the case. So please make sure and that you absolutely need GenAI to solve this. Another thing is, does a similar solution exist in the market? If it is, your life is going to be much, much more easy, because then you'll have some baselines to look at. What does success look like for those solutions? And then you can actually go ahead, replicate a few things, and then build on top. Another thing is, how can I test my product early? Now, this is really important. And you need to have a very well-defined testing strategy before even you start implementing your product. Because the thing is, especially with this products, you need to involve your customers, your actual users, very early with your development. And when I say very early, it could be right off after your first week of implementation. It's that early, and the whole reason behind it is, if you want to fail, you want to fail fast. Another thing is you may end up seeing some prompts from the user which you have never thought about, and maybe those sum up to 50% of the prompts. Now you have a roadmap for yourself based on the user prompts itself. That, oh, I was solving for the wrong thing. Let's solve for the right thing. Hence, I'm saying this: test the product early. It's fine even if it is failing within your initial testing. Another thing is, what sort of data do I have and what sort of data do I need? Just figure it out first as a product manager, because again, the thing is, if you're operating in a big org, your data dependencies are going to be huge, right? And maybe you're the team initiating your generative AI and copilots, but all of your cross-functional teams or the teams who actually own data or APIs are not so aligned, right? So you have to make sure that your platform teams or your data teams are absolutely aligned when developing something like a copilot. For example, like, let's continue our e-commerce profile, right? Today, you're trying to answer every possible thing about your e-commerce platform or whatever products you have, and now we have not established a really good integration with the team, which is actually working on reviews or personalization, right? In that case, if you don't have that data available up to date, flowing in with the right pipelines, you're not actually, you're going to end up in a situation where you have built your models, everything is done, but the data is not flowing in properly, right? And essentially, these are the things which you need to take care of right off at the start. Finally, if you need to think about how am I going to incorporate feedback, right? Okay, you are going to do a lot of testing with the users, etc. They're going to come up with all possible prompts. How are you actually going to consume those in a scalable fashion? So you need to think about how can I have a very solid feedback operation framework sitting on top of my product. If you could use some third-party applications for this or build an in-house monitoring framework. On top of it, how are you actually going to prioritize which prompts you're going to solve for, and further train your models. Now, this is very important basically, these are the questions which you are going to think about even before you're going to start with your first implementation, right? Because trust me, in this process, when you're actually developing GenAI products, the amount of time you get to fix things or you get to iter is particularly lesser than what you would get for more of a traditional deterministic product, because you're going to lose the customer interest pretty quick if you're not going to act on their feedback. No, he's going to test your product for a week or two at max, and if he says the product giving similar answers to that, they're going to lose the interest. Finally, what is your strategy with foundational models, RAGs, and fine-tuning, etc.? You need not be very specific about this or have figured this out right on day one, but you should have a little bit of idea as a product manager that, okay, what are some of the LLMs I would be using? Go in, just take a look at which LLM does a good job at what kind of use cases, etc. I'm going to be talking about this towards the end in more detail. Now, again, as I said, right, initiating factors for GenAI product at big organizations. It could be a direct customer need. Now, this is very easy to solve for, right? Because you have tested the market, you have a strong PMF, and now we are going in and solving. You can clearly define metrics, etc. In this case, the way you define success would be
listening.
Okay, I can hear some disturbances. Okay, so and in this scenario, you're going to clearly define the metrics, work towards it, and basically you're going to have a very close relationships with the customers, going in, testing it early. As a PM, you're much more confident to dive into this, and essentially you're going to have a much easier time bringing the product to reality. Another thing is your customer is doing it and you absolutely want to get into the race. This is wherein you start off with what your customer has built, what your competitor has built, build something similar and actually go ahead, test it again and try to improve what they are not doing well. This is one of the very, I would say, this is a straightforward thing to do. And I don't think there is a problem in just going in, starting on a similar note, your competitor, and then building something on top. Hi, Jacqueline. I'm just hearing some disturbances. There's some mics which need to be turned off.
Yeah, feel free if you're in the room to turn off your mic because there may be some background noise.
Perfect. All right. And moving in, finally, about the leadership initiative, right? It could be a case wherein it's more of a top-down thing flowing, which is particularly common in big organizations where you have like a leadership initiative saying, "Hey, we need GenAI being integrated into our product." Now, as a PM, it could be pretty tricky for you because now you have to somehow get GenAI into your product. But at the same time, you have not reached a state where you're confident that you need, like your customers actually need GenAI for that, your particular sub-product or whatever thing you're working on. In this case, it's really important that you're absolutely in sync with the leadership and try to define whether this is needed or not. And if it is not, I would say put the effort to um, come up with reasoning why this is not required. Because if you just jump in and go in and say, "Hey, I'm going to implement, copilots or different AI assistant," eventually you'll end up in a situation where you won't be able to justify the need of it. So you have to be very clear to start off with and be on the same page with the leadership. Going to shifting the lens, right? This is something which I especially wanted to talk about for PMs over here who are moving from non-AI products and picking up a Gen AI product or any AI product. One is defining the micro successes in a Gen AI product is tricky, right? For traditional products, you can just say, let's take an example, right? You're trying to build maybe a better, a good checkout experience in your e-commerce. Now, as a PM, you can actually define the success pretty clearly. That hey, I have a checkout page, and the user is able to come in, and get the payment up, and just go ahead and check out, right? So it's more of like 0 and 1. Either you check out or you don't, right? You have a very clear indicator of success. For Gen AI products, it's not so clear, right? How would you actually define? Imagine you're building something like a chat experience, a virtual assistant. How would you actually define success? You can go in, you can talk about model performances. That's a different thing altogether. You can talk about accuracies, hallucinations, etc. You can measure those. You can measure how many thumbs up, thumbs downs you're getting on your responses. But again, there is not a clear way to actually define your micro successes as you're going through the product lifecycle. And this is something you need to be comfortable about, right? And over here, a lot goes into actually qualitatively defining what success is. You actually need to go in, see what customers are doing it, go analyze every prompt, how whether customers are finding it helpful. You need to be engaging with customers a lot more one-to-one as compared to what you would do with a traditional non-AI product. Now, testing plans, right? This is an important one as well, because now with a traditional product, you can be very exhaustive with your testing plans. You can be very stringent. You can say, okay, these are all my edge cases. I'm going to list out all the edge cases. This is how my QAs are going to validate it, etc. You can be very stringent on bugs, because they are very straightforward, right? You're going to have certain number of bugs which are going to be very obvious, and again, you can be stringent. Now, with GenAI-based things, you can't be non-exhaustive. You can't go in and have a testing plan which covers all possible prompts that your copilot can possibly get, right? So you have to manage your expectations accordingly, right? I would say start very low on expectations when it comes to testing plans. Keep it open, and make sure that you're not going to try, they're like chasing edge. You're getting into that chasing the edge cases loops. Because otherwise you will never be able to release. And if you try to implement your similar release strategies that you're using for your non-AI based products, those are not going to work, right? You would be never able to test the market of it. So you have to be a bit more open with your testing, unless and until your copilot is not really giving back some crazy answers, or it has certain guardrails in place. You should be good to go, right? And the reason behind this is when you're going to come up with a test plan, you're going to absolutely scope in saying, okay, these are probably the 15 prompts I'm going to expect that my copilot is going to do well. Apart from that, many a times it happens that for some prompts it would do well because of your foundational model. Some prompts it won't. You should be fair and just go ahead with it. So as a PM, prioritizing the bugs, you need to have a very clear strategy so that you are not delaying your test to market. Ambiguity, again, it's going to be highly ambiguous, non-deterministic. Dev progress, this is an interesting thing, because as a PM, when you're coming in, you would actually expect every sprint you're doing some progress. You're building, you're trying to ship something new, or you see a progress from okay, for example, today you're supporting, maybe you're trying to build a payment gateway, you're supporting credit cards, etc. Now, a sprint later, you're able to support maybe something like bank integration or things like that. I'm just making things up, right? But over here, what I'm trying to say is you are having a deterministic and way to look at their progress. That is not going to happen in GenAI products, right? It would be one sprint you try to, it's going to be very exploratory, non-incremental, hard to estimate. And one sprint you go and you realize, oh, wow, this particular thing is working, or I tried a different foundational model and some prompt started to work. Now, this is a huge progress for you. In some sprints, you would be trying to build something and it would not result into anything. So you have to be accepting of that fact that there is a risk in this and your progress won't always be incremental. So I would say the way you need to go about it is don't be very strict on sprint deliverables, rather set a long-term vision and that set something which is like, if you get something in, something is working mid-sprint, or you're trying to follow like a couple of 2-week sprints, or you have some release schedule maybe once in 3 months, etc. Make sure that you're just trying to test the market even before your release schedule, right? Try to deploy, try to make as much patches as you want, and just like as soon as you see something is working, go in and test. You see something is working, go in and test with the end customers. So that way, what you're doing is, if you're trying to, if you're going to fail, you're going to fail fast, and if you want to pivot, you're going to pivot fast. Again, explainability, interpretability. This is something which is particularly hard in GenAI-based products. Now, how are you going to? I'm going to talk a little bit about this, right? In terms of maybe you're trying to, let's take the example of this shopping chatbot or a shopping copilot. You go in and you put prompt in something, and your copilot answers. Now, how have you reached that answer? The reasoning part of it is something you want to be very clear about, and you need to give as many indications as possible back to the user in the reasoning portion, right? So if you're looking at something like, if a user goes in and prompt, hey, I'm going to have a birthday party of my 10-year-old child, and help me form a shopping list, etc. Now, maybe if you just go in and pop the shopping list back, it won't be as straightforward as why this is popped back in. Rather, you could give something like, hey, how has the model reached there? A is like you're seeing, the way you have interpreted it, that there's a birthday, on birthdays you do XYZ things. Then you can put something like, hey, I've seen you buy these 3 things before. Hence, I'm seeing that you like these things, and hence I'm putting this in. So every time, or maybe like every time you're trying to, come up with the prompt, just make sure you're trying to explain the prompt within the product, explain the response within the product to the user as well. Now, for shopping experience, it could be straightforward. But imagine you're trying to develop something for a niche product, right? Which is, it could be a security product, or for that matter, it could be any other cloud-based product, or which is very like a SaaS product, which is very niche, right? In that case, you might go in, and if your copilot is behind the scenes trying to call APIs or trying to generate some queries, based on which it is getting your answer back, make sure you're exposing those queries to the user as well. So that way, the user has more trust in what the copilot is giving back. Finally, iteration speed, right? You need to be very, very fast for your GenAI products with your iterations. You won't be able to follow, it's very difficult to follow a strict schedule of releases. And finally, from a PM perspective, your tech depth and involvement needed with engineering is going to be super high. The reason behind this is when you're actually going to hire, or you're going to form your beta programs, or going to share things with the customers and recruit them for early testing, you need to be very clear about, you need to be able to explain your entire architecture to them, whatever is going behind the scenes, so that this way you're being very transparent. And at the same time, you're able to answer their questions right now. Because again, the thing is, when you're going to go ahead and put this in front of customers who are like tech enthusiasts, or you're like, you want people like that who are enthusiastic about trying your new AI, new GenAI stuff. And we're going to go in front of people like these. You need to be very clear about, how your data is being handled, how are you actually training your models, Why have you used RAGs, etc.? If questions like these come up. So the technical depth is going to be pretty high. And at the same time, you need to be very close with engineering, because the whole point is, since this is going to be a very exploratory thing, you need to have discussions wherein your engineers might try to develop something which is super ideal, but again, you're looking for something which is not so ideal, but rather it's out there faster. So you need to set that expectations are really clear. Um, because the whole point of this is, you're going to reach the state where you want with your copilots after analyzing a lot of user prompts. And in order to get lots of user prompts, you need to put something out there early. Now, let's talk about going 0 to 1 with GenAI products. Right? How are you going to do this? We're going to start with use case scoping. That is very important. Now, let us consider an example wherein you already have a SaaS product, and now you're trying to build a copilot, which is essentially it's just going to make your certain flows within the product very easy, right? Which are not, which you don't have it currently via your UI, or it takes multiple clicks to reach there via your UI. Right. So now the whole point is you're not trying to develop something like a chat GPT. You're just trying to develop a copilot which is specifically going to answer questions about your product. In this case, your use case scoping is very important, because even to start off with, you won't be able to target all the use cases that your product is currently supporting. So scope the use cases, scope the prompts. When I say scope the prompts, just come up with PM that, okay, what kind of questions am I going to ask to this product in order to get my answer? Go and scope it and build for those prompts. Okay, go and implement your models, choose the foundational models, build RAGs to fine tuning, etc. And then go in when you're going to go and recruit your customer, set the expectations right away. That, hey, I'm going to put this copilot in front of you, and today within the product, it is going to solve XYZ things. That's it. And with this playground being set, go in and let them prompt in. So this way, what is going to happen is they're not going to come in and ask any possible thing that they want. We'll talk about that as well, and how we want to get customer ask anything so that we generate more prompts. But to start off, you're going to set the expectation, and you're going to test it, right? So if there is just one or couple of workflows which are absolutely working brilliantly within your copilot, make sure you're absolutely sharing how you initiate those workflows, or how you get the most out of it, right? Demonstrate it, go one-on-one with your customers. I'm saying this again and again because the thing is, fundamentally as a PM, you feel that it's very easy to use the copilot because you can just go and put your natural language in and start using it. But when a customer actually uses, they might not be very aware of what to prompt in. And they can ask, random questions, because generally when you give a copilot in hands of customers, they're going to feel this is like a chat GPT, which can answer anything for me. And that is not going to be the case. Hence, you have to be very clear, or at times it will be much more easier as well if you can just provide prompt books to your customers. So again, and then you need to evaluate the feedback, go back, improve, add some of the samples, and retrain. Now, how to engage with the customer, right? I would say do targeted cohorts, beta programs, status scopes, provide prompt books. I'm just going to this slide quick because I have some good technical things to cover towards the end. Again, I'm saying set clear expectations, be transparent with communication, interactive demonstration, go in, share your screen and prompt into your copilots. And again, implement feedback mechanism for scaling. So I would highly recommend just implement as many mechanisms as you can within the product itself, thumbs up, thumbs down. Or you could do something like after every 5 prompts, you absolutely log the user out and make him put a thumbs up or thumbs down on the responses. Because this way, you're actually getting, this is the best way to get feedback on your AI product. right? Otherwise, you won't be able to understand whether your actually product is answering what it needs to. Because having a human in the loop and going through thousands of prompts together as a single PM is going to be very difficult for you to actually see how your copilot is doing. Okay, so certain things you need to consider as a PM moving in, right? Imagine this case you're trying to build 0 to 1 from scratch a copilot. You have already, like product vision is something you're good at as a PM. So let's say you have it covered, and you have put down the vision really explicitly, and you've broken it down into multiple milestones, etc. You have a good implementation strategy defined with your engineering team in terms of which models you're going to use, etc. We talked about test strategy before of how we want to be lenient, how we want to be very specific about, hey, these are your top 10 prompts that you're going to do well. You will keep on testing those before releasing something. And at the same time, you're going to be lenient with your testing strategy. Feedback loop is important, right? Now, why I say this is important. So imagine this case, you're a SaaS product and you're trying to develop a copilot. And you release your first version, and now you have got a lot of feedback. How are you going to solve for it? Or in cases, maybe you have not got a lot of feedback, and now you're actually sitting in and trying to go and take a look at individual prompts, how the copilot is doing. A is you need to, now again, maybe you're not aware about all the aspects of your product because you're on the copilot team, you're on the GenAI team, and you have multiple teams, which have subject matter experts for their own pillars. Now you need to align with them even before going in and implementing your first version, because now you're going to get more and more prompts really, really quick. So what you need to do is you need to figure out a process of how are you actually going to make sure that these individual subject matter experts are incentivized enough and they're coming in and they're actually taking a look at, hey, what are some of your customers prompting in? What cases your copilot did do well, your copilot didn't do well. And you're actually doing some kind of human tagging for the prompts, going back, adding those samples in and retraining. And trust me, this seems like the easiest step because there is no AI in this as such, but this is going to be the most difficult step when you're actually going to go in and cross org try to store feedback. Right. Finally, monitoring framework. In order to do this, you need to have a very strong monitoring framework, right? So as a PM, imagine this case, right? Your copilots are today you're just exposing this across across the globe. Now you're going to have multiple data concerns. You can move the data. You'll have certain geofencing things you need to look towards. Maybe you won't be able to access data anywhere, etc. So you need to have a very good monitoring framework strategy wherein you're able to take a look at all the prompts at the same time, stay within the compliance. And more or less, I would say you're not taking a lot of time to go back and fetch the prompts, or I would say go back, querying the databases, trying to look up for prompts, etc. Just make sure, and there are multiple softwares available, right? LLM evaluators, etc. available, which gives you a nice dashboard of what is your input prompt, output prompt, how much time a particular APIs are taking, what are the latencies, etc. You need to figure out a way to actually how you can add some human feedback in there as well. So you have one centralized monitoring framework which you can use to improve the product. Marketing strategy is this is important. You need to be very vocal about your GenAI use case and how are you using GenAI in order to improve your product or come up with or basically trying to support something completely new. And this is important because the thing is, when you're going to go into marketing your GenAI product, make sure you're including certain use cases, how exactly a particular thing is being solved. Because today you can see the word generative AI in pretty much every marketing blog that you see outside, right? You have to make sure that you are different from the other blogs that maybe your competitors are posting out. So the only way to do this is you have to be very transparent, as much transparent as possible with what are you doing behind the scenes. Again, whatever is you're allowed to from a company strategy standpoint, but be very clear. And again, like the whole point of the users are trying to shift towards now your users are fairly technical. So they're going to understand what you're doing. And if you're actually being very clear of how things function in the background, it's going to generate much more traction for you. Again, setting the customer expectations, be very clear about what you're going to support in the first release, second release, third release, etc. How are you going to extend your use cases? Take a look at your resources and cost, potential pivots. As I said, right, there are very high chances that maybe you have maybe you have decided you are going to support 5 use cases broken down into 3 release. You go first release in, you see users are prompting in something completely different. And now this is a clear indication that's the, I would say, that's the biggest plus point of GenAI-based products is you can actually see user prompting in what they need, at times as well, even when you have set a clear boundaries for them. So this actually helps you generate the roadmap straight up. Okay, just take a look at what users are prompting in, what you're not able to, answer. Take those in, try to build for it. So you would have to pivot at times from your strategies and try to support absolutely new use cases that you have not thought about. Again, the ones in the yellow over here are something which are pretty difficult and fairly, they're not very much in your control. Data dependencies, as I said, right? What if your copilot is dependent on cross-platform data? And then you have something which is you need a API out, from the platform team in order to support certain use case. Now, make sure you're trying to, these are some things you need to figure out way earlier because those things are not in your control. Cross-org ownership. Maybe you're trying to support one module in the Copilot, which you are not a subject matter expert about, but you're still trying to support. So if you're not able to answer the prompts well, it would, it's basically your Copilot is not functioning well. And at the same time, you don't have a lot of things in your control because as a PM on the Copilot team, you don't have a lot of knowledge about that particular module. Right? In that case, you need a subject matter expert from your cross org who needs to be very aligned with you to help you out there. Right. Finally, LLM dependencies, it's really important if you're using some foundational models. If you have a change in embeddings, many times it happens that the prompts which were working with the foundational model a month before don't work as they used to work. So you need to be open about taking those changes in as well. Okay, you might maybe you shift from certain set of embeddings to a different set, or maybe you go in from using Gemini 1.5 and now you realize, hey, this is not really working as I wanted. You maybe consider at a point completely shifting your foundational model as well. So these are some things which you need to be considerate about. Finally, legal and data privacy. This is a very important one. There's many times while you're developing as a PM, you absolutely don't consider the compliance and legal aspects. And this is something which might delay your release right towards the end. Because now you're going in, you have developed everything, and now all of a sudden you realize, wow, I have a data privacy concern, or I have a legal concern, which is maybe some of your customers want their data to be geofenced, and maybe your model provider, foundational model provider, they are not providing geofencing capabilities. And all of a sudden, you realize you're in a state wherein you can't release. So these things are something you need to make sure that you're clearing out right away, very early in your implementation. So make sure you're involving your legal teams very early, your compliance teams very early. And this is this is something which I would say which is black and white, right? These are low hanging fruits, I would say. So like after doing all the hard work of trying to get your rags, fine tuning, etc. right, towards the end, if you realize, hey, I'm not doing really well with my compliance, it's not going to help. Finally, I'm going to talk about some technical considerations with your fundamental models. A is which models you are going to use, right? I'm just going to switch to the next slide. So choosing the model, right? So this is what I have seen with whatever research I've done and some playing around is you have a lot of options when it comes to your fundamental model. You can go with GPT-4, Claude 3, Gemini, you have Llama. So GPT-4 is like it does a really good job with text generation, and it has a really strong reasoning, contextual understanding. But at the same time, it has higher potential of misinformation. Moreover, it is way less conservative as something like Gemini. GPT most of the time will try to give you an answer back, even if the answer is wrong. Some of the use case which it could be good at it is like you're trying to have general recommendation or free flowing content creation, some personalization. GPT-4 could do a good job. Claude 3 is much more strong with conversation abilities. When I say that, we have seen like it maintaining a really, with context, it does a really good job. Moreover, if you Claude 3 is very important when like, it does a fair job when you have something very niche, right? Or you have built rags on top of it and you're trying to make it pretty niche for your particular use case. It will do a good job there. So if you're building something for a shopping assistant for your website or like a customer support chatbot, when you have you're dealing with a niche field, right, and you have a very well-defined scope, Claude will do good there. Gemini, on the other case, is very conservative, right? So I've seen, and moreover, it's grounded with Google search as well. Moreover, I've seen the weakness over here is it has a fairly higher hallucination rate, and on top of it, the good thing about it is if you are working in a field wherein you're fine with your copilot not answering versus it answering something completely wrong. Again, this is the trade-off, right? If you're you absolutely don't want to give a false information back, Gemini could do a good job because it's very conservative. It would go back and say, hey, I don't know answer for this particular thing, rather than giving something completely wrong out. So this is my take on the foundational models. And again, this is something which is, it keeps on changing, right? So it's not hard and fast, but if you need a starting point, this could be a starting point for you. Finally, we're going to talk about RAGs and fine tuning, right? It's like essentially RAG is now how are we going to decide whether you're going to use a RAG or fine tuning, right? So if you're trying to build for a use case which is very niche and it is going to have lesser data dynamics. When I say lesser data dynamics, is your data whatever is trained on, it's not going to change. It's very factual. You're not taking into consideration latest things or maybe let's say for example, you're trying to build something which is maybe I'm just putting it out, maybe a educational chatbot, right? And you're trying to develop something for teaching physics, for that matter. Right. In that case, you can actually fine tune your model on certain physics concepts, which are not going to change. Right. I'm giving a very simple example over here. In that case, fine tuning might work well. But RAGs on the other end, if you're trying to build something which is like maybe you're trying to build something for your SaaS product, and after every 3 months, your SaaS product is having a new release and it's coming up with a new capability. In such case, or maybe you're trying to develop something for which helps with your documentation search within your SaaS product. Your documentation is going to keep on changing, right? You're going to keep on adding new things. In such cases, RAGs are going to work well because they give you immense adaptability with data. You can keep on adding new things, or even when it comes to your shopping assistant use cases, you're trying to develop a chatbot for it, and now you want to continuously feed in data, which is basically your personalization data, which is going to keep on changing over time. You want to feed it in. A RAG approach would be much better. Overall, what I've seen is RAG is much more easier to implement and maintain, and it's fairly quick as well as compared to fine tuning, because fine tuning is very resource intensive, and if you want to iterate, fine tuning is not really easy to iterate on. Your release cycles would go much more longer. if you see you want to support a completely new use case within your Copilot, and if you already fine-tuned it, you can go ahead with a hybrid model as well. If in certain cases, you're trying to build something on top of your foundational model, and certain words mean a different thing as compared to what they mean in a normal scope, right? Basically, it's something which is very niche to a SaaS product. Make sure you're using hybrid. Finally, I'm going to go back as again. We have talked about model evaluation and how we're going to actually go in and get the feedback in, how your feedback operations are going to look like behind. Make sure you're trying to have you're having a separate product or a separate strategy of how you take a look at feedback, how you involve humans, how you tag your prompts, and how you go back and retrain your models. On top of it, I'd like to talk about guardrails and model security as well, because this is something which you need to involve quite early. Guardrailing is basically a process wherein, as you know, right, you make sure your model is not um, giving answers, certain answers which it should not, right? You have multiple types of guardrails. You have adaptive, compliance related, contextual, and security guardrails, etc. So, or at times you don't want your Copilot to say your competitor is better than you, right? This comes under guardrails as well. Finally, model security. Make sure the way you're trying to protect your model from prompt injection, you're not, you're not showing up information that it shouldn't, exposing user data, etc. So all of these things, when when as a PM, you are just chasing the best Copilot experience, and you want everything to be thought first. These are some things which you might miss. Right? Because you always think that users are going to use this for use cases and for good purposes, but that is not going to be the case. So this is something you need to be, you need to have bandwidth for in your implementation and need to consider right off the start. Finally, I would say, if you're trying to, if you have a Copilot and you're trying to, you have multiple modules or models within your SaaS product, and you want your prompts to be divided in a fashion that, based on the prompt, it tries to reach us to a particular model. Make sure you're trying to get the intent detection piece in. Which can better help, and this can further divide your divide your use cases in a better fashion as well. So that you're not just dependent on your foundational model to figure out what is the right way. You're trying to follow a hybrid approach where you have certain level of intent detection right off, which is dividing your prompts into buckets, and then you have separate modules to handle those prompts. Finally, I'm going to talk about model evaluation as well. Is if you have the way you're going to evaluate is accuracy, right? If you have thumbs up and thumbs down on your responses, that is the most easiest way. It is coming in from the product. Customers are giving in. Very easy to analyze, very easy to work upon. But the truth is, you're going to see, not every person is going to give you a thumbs up and thumbs down on response. Most of the times, when a Copilot returns something good, people are not going to put a thumbs up. In this case, you need to form strategies of how are you going to involve your internal teams to take a look at your prompts, whatever your Copilot is doing, and tag it. Second is, how can you use LLMs to grade or to evaluate your answers. So there are multiple ways in which you can do this. One is like you use a LLM evaluator just to see if whatever the question answer pair is, if someone is, if your Copilot comes in with a drastically crazy response back, these graders would be able to easily flag those. But I would say you need more of a combined strategy over here. All right, this was the last part, and I'm going to open it for Q&A. Now we have 10 minutes left.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So you all could leave comments in the chat box if you like, or you could unmute yourself and ask any question you like, whatever's easier for you.
Okay,
We have around 10 minutes for questions. Again, feel free to unmute yourself, or you can type it in the chat box below.
Jacqueline, I can see some questions in the chat box.
Oh, okay. I just see one coming in. So somebody asks, how do you try and control costs with a RAG/LLM chat box implementation?
Okay, so the one thing you can try to control the costs is pretty much the A is you could limit your input window of the text. B is the way you want to, for example, if you're trying to go in um, with a conversational chatbot, all right, are you trying to for every prompt? What is your window that you're looking at? Like, are you just pushing in all the tokens from your previous 15 messages into the LLM and try to, expecting the LLM to take context from your previous conversation and answer it? This is the way where you want to take the trade-off. Okay, to start off with, I just go with a 1:1 pairing, right? You go in, just whatever, like you make sure you're setting the expectation that you're not going to preserve context from the previous conversation. That way you can reduce the cost a bit, and at the same time you can do it. Absolutely, yes. So do you see any decline in quality of service? Yes, you would see it, right? But again, this is a trade-off, right? And essentially, in certain cases, depending on your use case, you absolutely don't need to preserve any context from your previous conversations, right? Another strategy could be over here is you go in with your first prompt, you go send it to the LLM. When it comes back with the response, you yourself provide sample prompts, sample follow-up prompts, which makes more sense, right? So in this case, now we have cached those responses for the sample prompt, and now you don't have to go back to them. So these are some of the strategies that you can work around, or maybe just go in and cache certain top used prompts so that again and again you're not going back and forth with it. So caching, sample prompts, etc. This is very helpful. And as you're going to use the product more, your customers are going to use the product more and more. You will start seeing a pattern of what follow prompts they ask, right? So that you can actually reduce your back and forth with it. Okay, I can see, will we have access to these slides? I think yes.
Yes, everyone will have access. Yeah.
RAG has context window limits as well. Coming in from Scott, yes, it does. So it's all about what it's about how we want to go ahead and define it, right? Many a times, generally, what we see is having around a context window of 3 to maybe like. So one sec. So are you talking about? I'll put this like I'll take this question into two frames. One is if you're talking about the context windows from your previous conversation, what my experience has been is you need not just throw in all of your history into the LLM, but rather maybe you start losing context after 3 or 4 previous messages. And when you're talking about RAG's content window, if you're talking about that, you can actually go in and do some sort of chunking while you're actually uploading documents into your while basically developing your RAG. So I hope I've understood your question correctly. If not, you can just throw in a follow-up.
Okay. And I see another question here. So it says RAG has context window limits as well, right? Maybe it doesn't matter for a lot of user cases, but it might.
Let me force into one. Okay, fair.
It's from Scott.
So yes. So over here, what we have seen is, or what I've seen is, on comparing RAGs with fine tuning, right? A is that's why I talked about the hybrid approach, right? So if you see that you go ahead and you decided you want to go in with a pure RAG based approach and you don't want to find. And then you see that certain questions you're seeing a lot of prompts which are not really RAG dependent, or I would say they're coming in from a place or maybe within the product itself. Um, it is trying to answer something which is not related to dynamic data, right? And 90% of your prompts are like that. Then you shift in, you try to fine tune your model on that particular data, and you move away from RAG, right? But in most of the cases, what you see is if you are dealing with highly personalized content, if you're dealing with something which is always changing, you're in very early stages of your base product, fine tuning it on fine tuning it won't really help, because even if the context window of RAG is limited, still it offers you a lot of it offers you a lot of dynamic help, right? And you can always go in and start removing your documents. You need to have a strategy in place wherein you're removing your outdated documents from your RAG as well. So that is the way I look at it.
Amazing. I think we have time for one more question if anyone has any last minute updates. If not, then we can wrap up. Anyone has any questions? Now is the time.
I think there was one more in the chat. I don't know if it was answered.
Let's see where it was. Let's try and find it.
How do you know where to draw the line when it comes to testing with GenAI? Do you do more qualitative measurement or use some metric too?
Okay, so for this one, right? When it comes to honestly speaking, initially when you're going to take a look at testing, it's going to be more on the qualitative side, right? Because you won't have a for sure like quantitative metrics. Some of them which you could use is efficacy, your model accuracy, latencies of how much time you're taking to give a response back. But these are very model specific and won't give you a clear idea. So I would say it's much more on the qualitative side. I won't focus a lot on latencies, etc. to start off with. Rather, have a human in the loop and make sure you're sitting in and you're grading whatever the model generates. Right. So so basically you start with the qualitative style and eventually turn it into quantitative, because now you're actually going in, putting thumbs up, thumbs down yourself on the responses. And then that's how you're going to measure accuracy. It seems very crude, but that is how that is the way you're going to have logical good numbers on your metrics.
Can I ask a follow-up on this?
Sure.
So essentially, let's say you're testing your product and you have a lot of prompts coming in from customers, and you now want to analyze, which prompts work best, which didn't. I think you touched upon there would be thousands or, maybe a lot of prompts. So how do you do that? How do you manage that? How do you work with at scale, like so many prompts coming in and evaluating which one worked, which didn't work?
Correct. So this has been this is something which has been an ongoing challenge as well for me. So what I try to do is what you could try is you try to involve as many of your colleagues of you as possible. Try to take I would say take more of a structured approach. Right? Or you decide as a PM every week I'm going to spend 3 hours analyzing prompts. Right, you sit and you actually analyze it, putting thumbs up, thumbs down. For one thing that you're going to do is absolutely have an in-product thumbs up and thumbs down as well, right? Like in-product feedback collection as well, so that the customers are putting in. If not, you're trying to set time aside. And moreover, you absolutely recruit subject matter experts within your company. If you're trying to have this initiative at a big org, recruit within the company. And one thing you could do is you could use LLM itself to tag the prompts based on your product area, right? So whatever prompts you're seeing in, you tag those prompts based on the product area, and now you have individual owners who own certain tags, and they'll go in and you're seeing, oh, okay, tag ABC is my domain expertise. I'll just go and take a look at all the prompts which are associated with this tag. I'm going to give feedback. So this would work the best. If not, you can just go and try to have an LLM itself, feed your documentation in, and feed the question and answer to it, and try feed the entire conversation and try to see what it evaluates with. At times you would get seeing, hey, the customers are asking repetitive questions again and again. This could be a potential indication that you are within the conversation. So it's an indication that you're not answering it correctly. Hence the customer is asking again. Things like that. You can try to analyze the sentiment. If they're trying to the responses are angry, or like, hey, you don't understand what I'm saying. If they prompt things like these are some things which LLM evaluators will quickly flag for you.
Thank you for answering.
Awesome. Yeah, this was a really great conversation. We ended just on time, so this was perfect timing. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to today's conversation. Just a friendly reminder, I put our website link in the chat below, so you can learn all about our program and management exercises. If you have any questions, don't be shy. We're here to support you. And until next time, we'll see you all next week.